Oh, okay, everybody, great and glorious, simply famous one day, Nick Dutch back on the camera again one more time. Hi there, how the heck's it going? It's good to be here, and I just thought I would pop back on the camera because some people out there, they're just like craving yet another video from Nick Dutch. I haven't really actually planned anything, I didn't really think about anything that I could possibly be saying. So what I thought I'd do just for this one particular video is merely just like sit here and ramble, because essentially rambling is pretty good fun. You know, I bumped into an old friend of mine today. It was like I had these like chores to do in the city centre at lunchtime, and this guy come along and he says, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, like on Monday, I have to go to the bank. I have to put the money from the church into the bank because that's what I have to do. All the money from the services got to go to the church's bank account." And he says, like, "Why, why are you involved with this?" And I says, "Well, basically because." I spent some time as a practicing pagan, and I found that quite interesting, and I learned an awful lot from it, but I didn't quite agree with it. And I became a deist, and I enjoyed thinking deistically, but I also decided that, I want to be part of a different variety of culture, so, that's why I chose Anglican Christianity." And he says, "Well, do you, like, hate pagans?" And I thought, well, no, I don't. I mean, this is like his instinctive reaction. And he said things like, "Do you think that pagans follow false gods?" And I says, "No, I don't think that there is such a thing, because basically from my point of view, it doesn't really matter. Your own personal theology is your own personal theology. That's neither here nor there. It's what an individual thinks that can make them distinct. And sometimes within groups, there can be a few problems. And so this is why I'm still very much an individual, independent individual, although I'm part of a collective. All right, I suppose I could have done the same thing amongst pagan circles, but I think that there's also the same kind of drive that you get within pagan circles that there are in some forms of evangelical fundamentalist Christian circles as well. The drive to convert or to assist somebody in their path or whatever, But also both schools of thought are very difficult to control the nastier elements. I think it's slightly easier in Christianity because although there are some bits of the Bible which say you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that, there's other bits which basically counteract that. So essentially it's useful to actually use a person's own faith to be able to give them a bit of extra self-doubt. And then basically it can be their own, it's only up to their own misinterpretation that's led them to develop really fucking stupid views. Alright? Within something a little bit more, free form or whatever you want to call it, then that's a little more difficult because there's less specific structure. Now, there are some aspects of paganism in which there are some attempts have been laid down to create some kind of cohesive structure to it. And I've mentioned that in my earlier days when I was basically mentioning the fact that the 13 principles of Wicca are just as applicable to Christianity as they are to Wicca itself. So essentially there is that sort of a defined denomination within paganism, or defined denominations. But on the other hand, they don't necessarily correlate directly with people's behavior. Just like within Christianity, there's the idea of being loving, tolerant, charitable, and all the rest of that. And then you watch some prosperity gospel wanker just, talking his complete shit. And you think to yourself, what's going on here? Because there's a contradiction. Because they've drawn their own conclusion. So my point here really is whenever a person is choosing their own religious denomination, they also need to reserve the right to be able to move outside of it and also to criticize the ideas that they've been given, and also to be aware that sometimes dogma and doctrine can be provided as a brainwashing tool, which eventually works out as one of those do what I say and not what I do kind of things. And I disagree with that in any school of thought, whether it's paganism or Christianity or Judaism or Islam or atheism or whatever else is out there at any particular point in time. It's a very difficult area. It's a very grey area. But you need to find, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is you need to try and find some kind of middle ground, because there aren't any true religions. I mean, people come to me and ask me about what is the true magic. Okay, is it like Solomon, or is it chaos, or is it whatever? And basically that's a load of bullshit, okay? Because when people are asking me that question, they're asking me to tell them which religious denomination to follow in reality. And that, I think, is stupid because it shouldn't be up to me. And on top of that, if you do follow a religious denomination, you still need to reserve the right to basically move outside of that and actually be self-critical about some of the things you're reading and learning and experiencing. Okay? And I don't think that a lot of people have quite got that. And instead, you have these like rigid denominations or rigid denominational ideas. And people end up saying, well, this is what this group says, or this is what this like load of text says. Therefore, this is true and you are wrong. All right? But my criticism is often of the individuals and the way that the individuals or groups of individuals seem to be thinking, not necessarily anything negative against one particular group or another. All right? So, that's the kind of distinction I would draw. And I would say that, although like, we all need to like work together and overcome rubbish together because that's what humans have to do. We also need to be like a separate and individual. And I know it's difficult trying to like get the balance right, but this is why we need to have our reasoning. And I think that's why there's always a bit of a deistic component to anything that you experience out there in like the spiritual world. There just always is. There just seems to be less of it in this political atheism which is going around at the moment, for some reason. But, they'll grow up too eventually, so I ain't worried about it. So keep cool, relax, chill out, everything's fine, and I'll speak to you again soon. Oh, by the way, the reason I didn't do videos during the weekend was because we had my mother's 70th birthday. We had a bit of an occasion, we made a 70-year-old very proud, and it was a great time, really rather moving. So, anyway, thanks for sticking by me during this weekend when I haven't been making videos. Speak to you again soon. God bless.